everyone, and welcome to our August council meeting. Beautiful day to be inside, unfortunately, but anyway, I'll start the agenda as usual with our apologies, and I have an apology from Liz and Hazel. That's everyone else is here, so Graham and Roger second. All those in favour? Contrary? Carried. The disclosures of members' interests, the second item on the agenda. Do we have any today? Not that I'm aware of. Okay, thank you for that. Late items. No late items. Right, thank you. And a confirmation of the order of the meeting. I haven't had anyone request to change, so moved Councillor St Pierre, seconded Councillor Lou Brown. All those in favour? Aye. Contrary? Carried. Councillors' updates on attendances, just on issues affecting council if we can. Is there any around the table? Andrew?
Yeah, I attended the Trust Waikato public meeting on your behalf on Thursday. It's doing a great job. They're run by a good bunch of people, fiscally responsible, and put 25 million into the Waikato community last year. So.
Yeah, it's fantastic, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. And they've always been great supporters of projects in Waikato. Phil? No. Roger?
Yeah. Yes, Your Worship, thank you. Did the Three Waters webinar, which I thought was very well done. And it reflects a lot of what the community concerns are out there on 3x3 densification. So
yes, and I haven't caught up on how the Communities for Local Democracy's submission went to the select committee as yet, but I doubt whether they would have got any feel from that. But I certainly went and presented for council in Hamilton last week. So thanks. You're right, Suze?
Just quickly, yes, attended the Heritage Fund meeting along with Roger and I think Claire was there. So I was on Zoom, but I just wanted to acknowledge the work done by staff and members for that, in preparation for that meeting. It's a real step change from previous Heritage Fund meetings. So I just wanted to acknowledge the work there. Attended the Paralympian pin ceremony with you, Jim. It was a really intimate sort of occasion, but very inspiring. I mean, I felt incredibly lazy and felt like there was never any excuse to not charge on with something, you know. They're really inspiring young athletes. And also most of us, I think, attended site visit at the Mangatotiri Road property, and really exciting opportunities and potential. And it was kind of really only saw it once you got there. So yeah, really excited to see what happens for that site.
Yes, through the chair, just also the Paralympians pin ceremony, which again, as Susan said, was really inspiring, and actually good to talk to some of those athletes and some of the administrators. So,
thanks, Mike.
Yeah, thank you, Richard. Yesterday we just attended the last training meeting for civil defence, and we managed to tidy up a couple of issues. The main one was that we've actually obtained an overdraft facility for our joint committee, so that when we have overruns of costs that happened in the last COVID era, that we have some funds that we can actually repurchase back to the councils. The other thing was that we had a little valedictory at the end because Hugh Verco is standing down, and it's a long-term member, so we had a little valedictory. Other than that, they also just had one final point, is that we retain our positions as joint committee until the new members are actually allocated by the new mayors. So that means that there is no sort of period of having no administrative structures. Thank you.
Thanks, Lou.
Yeah, I attended the Pirongia Cycleway meeting along with Angie Brown, and it's getting pretty exciting because we're getting really close to having enough people over the line to, get some action on the ground. There has been a question about whether or not volunteers could do some of the construction work, and I did ask Dawn whether or not we could look at how that fits with our procurement policy. I was hoping Adele might be able to sort of give us some advice just to make the dollars go further, but also, you know, we've got great buy-in from the community. It'd be great to see people actually being able to participate in that way as well, as long as it was, not disadvantaging the, you know, the competitive tendering and things like that we need to follow. I also attended the Plan Change 26 webinar last night, and I think I'm really impressed with the staff, the preparation that's gone into it, the way they communicate it, and get the key messages across, and some really good questions coming through. So I just think that the way it's being presented is the best that we could, I guess, and hopefully our community understand what's happening there. And I also attended the Infometrics webinar on the latest economic updates, which is showing a real drop-off in immigration. And with that, fewer jobs being filled. And lastly, there was a predator-free group launched for Tuamutu at the beginning of the month, and I attended that, and I know that Susan and Marcus did as well. Boy, what an exciting meeting. There was just such a lot of interest. So this is a group that's got a bit of funding to start some trapping, and I think I think there were about 48 people there, and everyone was really keen to get going on it. And I'm pretty excited about what that might mean for biodiversity within our urban areas. Thanks.
Thanks, Lee.
Thank you, Your Worship. I attended 2 meetings, so I was quite honoured, I suppose, to get back onto the Heritage Fund Committee after being involved with the biodiversity when they were separate committees. So that was quite good in Hazel's absence. And Susan zoomed in, so we're all go. It was good to be back. I also attended another follow-up meeting to the Nahana Press. I hope the Pirongia to Tiamutu to Pirongia Cycleway gets tidied up, because the next one's right on ready to go. They're pretty sort of go ahead group of people. They've already got diggers. There's so much local input, but there's a process to be followed, and funding that we got from outside, as well as hopefully council support. But that goes from the Waipa River right to State Highway 39. And then I've got all the landowners just a bit tidied up and stuff. Thank you for their input. It's a bit sad that Mr. Miles is moving on, but I'm sure this Aidan, I think, is taking over. So, thank you. It's been exciting. We have a lot of history with the Maori Pa and the old school site, and we've got landowner support. So I think it's quite tidy right up to the golf course at the moment, and for the future. So thank you.
Thanks, Bruce.
Thank you, Your Worship. Sorry, only one of note is I attended my last land transport meeting at Environment Waikato for 21 years, and they brought some of the staff, senior staff back, and people from NZTA, so a bit of history there. And Hugh was retiring as well, and the guys were absolutely amazed that I'd been on there for 21 years, but it was nice.
Thanks, Graham. And thanks for all the effort over those 21 years. And as you say, Hugh standing down, there's a huge amount of knowledge that will be going there, and looking around the region and probably the country. There's a lot of retirements this triennium, so there will be a loss.
Your Worship, what we've done in the last 2 meetings, we now have Kiwi Rail come in and report, and they're really enjoying it. They're giving us an up-to-date on where they're heading, where the capital expenditure is going. We never used to have that, but it is part of the land transport operation. So it's good for us to get that in conjunction with everything else that's going on with what's going to happen.
Thanks, Graham. So everyone okay? So look, I've attended a number of those events and functions that you've been talking about, so I won't reiterate those this morning. So we're on to item 6, which is the confirmation of the minutes of the 26th of July. Can I have a mover and seconder to receive those minutes? Roger and Andrew. All those in favour? Contrary? carried. I think there's about 12 pages of minutes there. If I just quickly go through, if there's any issues that people want to raise, any corrections. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 and 12. So everyone's happy. They're true and correct record of that meeting. And Roger's moved and seconded Lou. All those in favour? Contrary? Carried. Thank you for that. Documents signed under council seal. Gary, there's some warrants and 3 issues there.
Yes, just 2 plan changes being made operative, Your Worship, and 4 staff warrants.
And there's no comments or queries from anyone. Can I have a mover and seconder to receive that? Phil and Mike. All those in favour? Contrary? Carried. Item 8, the adoption of the draft Waipat District Water Supply Bylaw. Gary, are you handling that, or it's pretty straightforward?
Graham Pollard is here to answer any questions, but there's a recommendation here from the Strategic Planning and Policy Committee. This matter's been heard at that committee, and the bylaw is now recommended to you for adoption.
Thanks, Graham. Did you have anything else you wanted to add? I'll just open it to any questions, but as Gary said, it's had a fair airing and discussion. Moved Andrew, seconded Marcus. Everyone happy? Okay, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Contrary? Carried. Thanks, Graham. Didn't even warm the seat up. Thank you for that. Item 9, submission on the NPS for Indigenous biodiversity.
Thank you, Worship. So Kirsty Downey is not here today, but David Topman is here to answer any questions. So you'll recall this is another one of those draft policies that central government has published for us to make comment on. Again, the time for us to consult with our community, mana whenua and yourselves, was so short, it was simply not possible to do that. So under those circumstances, we pulled together a draft submission at staff level, we circulated to elected members, and we incorporated all the elected members' feedback into that submission. At the end of the day, we've been working very hard on Indigenous biodiversity for the last 30 years, and we have achieved a lot. And we're suggesting to central government that this is a good opportunity for it to work with us and put the Waipa model under the blowtorch and see if they can make it better, or work with us to do that. But critically, the time to have meaningful engagement with our community and yourselves was undesirably short.
Thanks, Gary. Any comments from Roger?
Yeah, I mean, I'd just like to comment on what Gary has said and the number of occasions in which we're getting these edicts coming through from central government with absolute minimum time for consultation and consideration is really a concern. You know, there's a lot of extra work being put in on the team at Waipa, and obviously that energy is taking away from doing its business as normal. So yeah, Gary, appreciate the pressure on the team for doing this. Yeah, thanks, Roger.
Mike?
Yeah, just through the chair. Just off the back of both those comments, is there any way mana whenua, because the consultation clearly didn't take place, is there any way they can put some pressure on central government to that? On one hand, they're sort of espousing to the world about consultation with mana whenua and tangata whenua, but on the other hand, they're really not giving the time to actually do it. So, yeah, I mean, I'd hate to see us as a scapegoat here because of time frame constraints. So my question is there anything we could ask them to do to actually make this consultation more genuine?
Certainly a matter we'll have on the joint management agreement agendas for the next time we meet. because iwi have a critical role in the policy and the draft policy that central government circulated.
Mike, I think those comments are really valid, because all I can see is that councils are going to end up as the meat in the sandwich here once again, and there'll be a lot of heat out there with iwi Maori controlling private property rights, and that's not really the issue, and the way it's been handled without giving the community enough chance to discuss this issue, there'll be a lot of fear, I would suggest, out there with the guardianship model that they're talking about on effectively what will be largely on private property. Yeah. Any other comments? That's Susan.
Could I just following on from that, Midge, I was reading the actual NPS itself and really concerned about the erosion of private property rights, even down to the terminology, shifting away from landowners to landholders. And, I accept that time constraints have meant we haven't been able to consult, particularly with mana whenua and tangata whenua, but I think, I wouldn't say more importantly, but quite crucially, we've got to have had the opportunity to have explained this to our landowners. I mean, we're pretty clear in our documents here that the majority of our SMAs rest in private hands, so on private property. So I'm really concerned at how this is going to pan out. And I mean, I'm a little bit self-interested. I have a site, I believe, on my property. Yeah, I'm really concerned about the erosion of property rights. I think it's part of this whole new democracy, maybe.
Yeah, and I suppose I'm looking around for anyone else obviously wanting to comment, but it seems to me that we've got a situation now where the Department of Conservation, who's responsible for about a third of the country in terms of land ownership, from a conservation point of view, have been underfunded for as long as I can recall. And this seems to be a complete shift away from central government funding biodiversity preservation onto local government. And there's no talk about any significant money coming from central government. A 10% increase in Indigenous vegetation, either in towns or in the rural area, seems to me to be a wet finger in the wind figure that somebody's plucked out of the air, which doesn't relate to any factual assessment of the situation, and will vary from one council to the other across the country. Waipa is probably struggling to have 10% Indigenous biodiversity or Indigenous vegetation left, but some districts not far from us, Otrahonga for argument's sake, would have far more than that, I would imagine. And actually, who's going to pay for the next step? I suppose we can identify the SNAs or significant natural areas, but that's only the first step along the journey. If you're actually going to do something about it, and as Gary has rightly pointed out, we've probably got the best example in the country with Mangatauteri to know what costs are associated with the ongoing maintenance and operation of these areas. So to me, there's the property rights and the actual cost, and no, I suppose, factual evidence to say that the 10% is a valid figure. And effectively, if we lock up another 10%, there's probably 45% of the country taken out of production. So look, absolutely support the principle of of protecting our Indigenous biodiversity. And if the figures are anywhere near right, and they're saying there's 4,000 species that are at risk, and I'm not sure how many of those are terrestrial, there's obviously quite a lot of marine species in that list, but I just don't think we can afford to leave it at the point that it is now, with another mandate coming down completely unfunded from central government. And it's all very well them saying there's not going to be any new taxes, but this is certainly going to end up on the ratepayers tab. And if we look at our own district at the moment, we've got something like 800 SNAs in our district plan. And there's a requirement there to actually have an ecological report on all of those to determine whether they should be in or out. And you don't get much of a scientific report for $5,000. And if you assume that for the 800 that we've got, we're talking about $4 million straight up. And we won't have protected anything other than just have a good plan. So look, I don't think we should be just accepting it, and we need to push back. I suspect that they'll just carry on pushing through with it, but we need to make our voices heard, I think. Claire, you had something to say.
Yeah, I was getting pretty excited when you said that there's no evidence about why 10% Indigenous vegetation cover has been sort of put down in it for urban areas. But there is quite a bit of work on it, like Dr. Bruce Clarkson's at Waikato University, and that's what he's done. He's been working on bringing nature back into cities, and it's based on really good research, and it shows that, first of all, I think it's been pretty well established that our natural world is the absolute foundation of our life, like human beings. So we depend on nature for supporting us. But for it to be able to be viable, it needs 10% cover, basically. So there's a really good report. I can send it around to people about urban land environments, Indigenous cover, and restoring it. Yeah, and I think, but I do agree that it's like for you to make those comments, Jim. It's something that we never had a chance to discuss it, and I think staff did a really great job in putting together what they could in the time, and I was really pleased with those extra points that they raised about mobile fauna species and things like that, and I absolutely agree that how it's going to be funded is no one's said how that's going to happen, and I can imagine that people are getting really nervous about that. But for the particular urban Indigenous vegetation, yeah, there's some really good stuff on that which I can share. Cool, thanks.
Thanks, Claire. And look, my comments weren't any criticism of the staff. We had to get a submission in as quickly as we could. So, but I just think we need to keep pursuing it. Bruce.
Sorry, could I make just a comment as a personal contributor? I benefited by EBLs 15 years ago, and as much other people around this table have got the same. And I was talking to Bill Garland, and he said to achieve what you want to do, and this is why I come in the cost factor, it'll cost you one of those. So let's say between $300,000 and $400,000 to achieve what I want to achieve. That's what he said, that when I was on the Biodiversity Council, and that's a while ago now, things have gone up in price. He said, it's going to be a big cost to you. Do you realise what you're doing? And I do realise it now.
Yeah.
I think I've got a few protected species, which are hard to identify from the layman's point of view, but I've got an ecological report. So I suppose another 10, 20 years, or maybe when I'm not there, who knows?
Yeah. Okay. So look, Gary, I'm not sure how we move on from this point. We've made the submission in the time that's been allowed, but we need to, I think, and there's probably a recognition around the table that we need to do a bit more than just make that submission. So.
Well, thank you, Worship. So to the point that was raised earlier by Councillor Mike, certainly raised this with our joint management agreement partners. And I think in terms of advocacy from a national perspective, we probably need to put some pressure on LGNZ to pick this matter up. They have access to central government policy advisors, and I think we need to be getting the point made through LGNZ as strong as possible.
Luke.
Totally agree with your statement, with Gary's statement, but I just wanted to say that also landowners, we need to consult with us. And this is the problem we have with a lot of this legislation, that it's brought out and put out in such a short time frame that we do not have the period of time to actively consult with everybody. And this has ramifications that'll go way beyond the next training we'll now. So we just need to have a very, very good handle on what we're actually supporting. And I don't think we have that at the moment.
Thanks, Lee. Okay. David.
I don't have anything to contribute. Morning, your Mayor, your Worship, councillors. Just simply to say I'm here, I'm listening, I'm taking notes, and we endorse basically that we had a very short time period to put it together. It was also a month without council meetings, so far from ideal. Thank you.
Thanks, David.
Just want to say that from a landowner's point of view, not a landholder, a landowner's point of view, I'll bet you there's not one policy advisor in the beehive in Wellington that has a damn clue on the effect that this will have or could have on the landowner. We'll do this, we'll do that, and nobody's been out on the farms and talked to the people like ourselves about the effect it'll have. And it's just all about ramming policy through with minimum time to discuss. And that's not democracy in my view, not democracy.
No, thanks, Graham. Okay, but we have a recommendation here, A and B, to receive it and just confirm the submission. So can I have a mover and seconder for A, Roger, and seconder Claire? All those in favour? Contrary? Carried. Item 10, Cambridge Community Board Chairperson's Annual Report. Too early, are we?
Just here, so we could do.
Oh. Ange, if that's okay. So we'll go to item 11, which is the Te Amutu Chairperson's Annual Report. Welcome, Ange. And we'll go back to the item 10, should Sue arrive. Welcome, Ange. Can you just switch your mic on too when you're ready to go? You know, she's, yeah.
You'll get me flustered and then I'll be all over.
You're unflustered.
Right.
Morena koutou, your worship, Mayor Jim, councillors, staff and members of the community who are with us today. Thank you for the opportunity to present the 2022 Te Awamutu Community Board Annual Report. The last 9 months have flown by, but we still managed to squeeze in a couple of things. Oh, they said you need to. Where am I meant to be pointing it? At you? Oh, I'm pushing the fat one. Stop. Okay. See, told you. I'm going to be flustered now. Okay, so we ran some regular activities for the youth of Te Awamutu aimed at students who cannot afford school activities. One of the community boards spoke with the intermediate students to find out what sort of activities they would like to take part in. The result was a fitness session held in Selwyn Park by one of the personal trainers from Jets and a few visits to the gym to use the equipment. Despite the turmoil of COVID interruptions, there's been a good uptake of kids, up to 20 taking part in these sessions and regularly turning out. We are now working with Ollie from TA Sports to expand the program, and this term they are doing fitness, ball skills and making fruit smoothies. So is this thing working now or I'm letting you do it? Aha, whoa, I just need to get to my one. Okay, so the e-waste, urban miners e-waste collection. So Cambridge Rotary, Te Awamutu Rotary and Community Board continue to work together to reduce our e-waste. Brought in to replace the e-waste day, this event is run on the first Sunday of most months. We see at least a trailer load, if not two, and up to $3,000 worth of recycling leaving every time. Project Battery, the recycling battery station located at Pack and Save, has been performing better than I expected. With no advertising, the bins are filling up every 2 weeks. It opened mid-February 2022, and to date we've collected 136 kilos of batteries and $532 worth. There is at least another 50 kgs ready to go. The DIY garage sale, unfortunately, has been a victim of COVID upsets, and this event is still on hold. We do hope the new board will support it. Oh, this is getting good now. Rural tours and the wattles. So the rural tour, after the positive feedback we received last year, we planned to make this an annual event. But instead of going to each of the halls and hoping people would come along, we decided it would be more beneficial if we attended an existing event. Unfortunately, finding suitable events prior to stopping for elections did not eventuate. The wattle pulling, this event also got put off again and again due to COVID restrictions, and then our guide badly hurt himself. Unfortunately, when he had recovered and got back up the Maunga, the wattle infestation is now widespread and way more than a volunteer day. We've been in contact with Hilary Webb, the biodiversity planner, to address this and see what we can do about it, and also waiting to hear back from Shane Tiroki regarding iwi hapu input. The track up the Maunga is still in a terrible state, with the drains along the sides full of weeds and water continuing to stream down the track. It would be good to see a little bit of money spent there to tidy it up. The next two comments are examples of why we have struggled to gain confidence from our community. So the Pollard street lights, in September 2019, we had police come to us and discuss Operation Pikaro, where they were implementing and identifying measures to minimise the crime there. The Pollard Drive area was identified as a high risk as the lighting is very poor. We were told recently that new lampposts were erected, and as per the Transportation Works plan, there were to be 16. On a recent visit, there are only 9 for the whole Pollard Drive and connected streets. With the new lights being directed down, it is probably darker than before. As a comparison, across Te Rahu Road and Beckett Drive, there are 9 lamps in the first 2 blocks. We have been telling the community this work was done, but apparently it's not. CCTV for Kihikihi. Having provided funding towards the camera in Kihikihi back in 2018, as the original CCTV plan was to have a camera installed out there, we have struggled to gain any traction and actually get it installed. It was approved in the budget to happen in this financial year, and we are still waiting. On a bright note, last week at the CCTV committee meeting, it has been escalated again as it needs to be prioritised. Being down a community board member has had a significant impact on what we have been able to take on since Christmas this year. With Gary Derbyshire standing down in October, he believed he would not trigger a costly by-election, but still give us ample time to find a new board member. Unfortunately, the process is somewhat convoluted, and we were not going to be able to get a board member officially installed until April 2022. So the board did not want to take this on. Some prior preparation for a if this happens scenario may be worth investigating. On a more positive note, a recommendation we made last year to change a public places antisocial driving bylaw to enable the police to have more power and impound cars when dealing with boy races was supported by councillors, and we continue to watch for progress in this space. With the bylaw change being critical to make any difference in the absence of National Police funding teams to address this ongoing problem. Our main project for this year is Who Are We Te Awamutu? Community Board set up a working group including Acting Chamber CEO Shane Walsh, Bill Harris for iwi and Steve Tritt, and a councillor representing council and a community board member to canvass the community and to administer a survey to find out what residents think about their town. The survey is progressing well. To date, 680 surveys have been completed with a balanced cross-section of ages. We have 20% youth, 13% Māori, and the balance made up of other age groups. A notable disparity is the gender category, with 70% females and only 30% males. It would be great to see a few more blokes get on their computers and take part, as we are sure our men folk want to have a say in how our future is going to look. We will be closing the survey off on Friday, 9th of September. So if you have not had your say, get along to www.whoarewetiawamutu.com. My report is not complete without mentioning the Community Board review. And for me, this was the highlight of this last triennium. In writing this report, I had a moment or two of disappointment when reading the slide from last year headed "Issues and Examples that Need Addressing," because none of these things we had listed have changed. I quickly reminded myself of a comment Dr. Stephen Finlay said to me after one of our workshops about the importance of local democracy, the role community boards play, and to look to the future for new possibilities and not get stuck in the past. This was a pivotal review and the result a much needed boost for our community boards. A special thanks to Dr. Stephen Finlay, who made the approved recommendations that will be implemented in the next triennium. Dr. Finlay advocated for the importance of local democracy, of placemaking, of community having direct input into their future, and not a "we know what is best" kind of approach. We are absolutely stoked to see the value of community boards brought to the fore. We need to be the voice of our respective communities and help drive community initiatives from the ground up with community at the centre. As Dr. Stephen Finlay of LGNZ said, communities need to have a say in the communities they inherit. From the review report under community priorities and outcomes, we would like to highlight and remind Council that the rationale for increasing community board effectiveness is based on principles embedded in the Local Government Act. Giving communities a direct say in the future shape and nature of their spaces is underpinned by a principle of communities as active partners, not just consultees. Facilitating active citizenship is a key goal of sector best practice and an expectation as the new central government, local government landscape becomes clearer. If these opportunities are not realised, the communities will be figuratively and literally worse off. If these opportunities and challenges are taken up, communities have the best chance of co-defining the future they stand to inherit. The recommendations give community boards an opportunity to actually champion their community. The fact that these recommendations are supported by staff and council, that community board members are going to get the resourcing and training to do the best job possible is fantastic and gives us hope and optimism for the future. Thank you to all council staff who provide reports, attend our meetings and work behind the scenes to help us achieve our goals. A special thanks to Karen, who does an amazing job in supporting the Te Awamutu Community Board with day-to-day business. We would like to thank and wish Richard Hurrell all the very best for his years of service to Community Board, who after 4 terms has chosen not to stand for re-election. To acknowledge Mahuru Māori Wiki, I'd like to close with this whakatauki, which is appropriate to the mahi we do. Mā te whiritahi ka whakatutuki, ai ngā pūmanawa a tangata, which translates to together weaving the realisation of potential. Tēnā rawa atu koutou. Thank you very much.
Orange. Thank you for that report. Open to questions. Phil.
Yeah, thanks for your report. Just wanted to congratulate you, just make a comment, congratulate you on your battery recycling station. It's an awesome initiative that. So it's amazing how much you're collecting every month. So well done. Brilliant.
Thanks, Phil.
Mike.
Yeah, again, a great thorough report. Absolutely brilliant. Question is off the bat, where does the money go?
Where does the money go for the batteries?
So you made $500 odd.
Oh no, sorry, we didn't.
Yeah.
Sorry, we didn't make $500. It cost $500. So what Community Board did was they have sponsored the recycling of the batteries up to $2,500. But that was the cost of 153 kilos. Sorry, that was probably a bit unclear.
No, good.
Lou, and then Claire, sorry.
Yeah, I just wanted to verify with the money with urban miners is self-sufficient, pretty self-sufficient. So most of the money is going back into their operational levels. So they're not making money or making themselves. They're a non-profit organisation. So we work together with them quite closely.
Thanks, Lou.
Yeah. Thanks, Ange. It's great to see you here and a great report. And I'm really impressed as well with the recycling that you're doing. I had a question about Stephen Finlay's report. Because like what he's sort of given us is really just the start. It's not the end. Yeah, like it's really the start of a journey. So, are you seeing him as like coming back again and doing more work with the community board, or because you also mentioned about upskilling or getting good training and things like that, like what do you see would be, the next steps, following on from Dr. Finlay's report?
So obviously the upskilling and things was one of the recommendations that Stephen made, and on a brief discussion before he took off to the plane, he did allude to the fact that he was coming back, but Joe possibly might be able to answer whether he's definitely being brought back to help us with some training. So for me, yeah, the next step is to get together and just work out how we can, how the new community board will be able to start implementing those recommendations, and obviously staff will be involved in leading that. So I suppose at this point in time, I probably can't say what's going to happen because I have no idea whether I'm going to be part of it or not.
Yeah,
so
thanks for that. Gary, you might be able to help.
Yes, so staff have been working on an induction program for both elected members and at the board level and council level, very much contingent upon the new mayor agreeing with that program. But for the community boards, certainly aim to have Stephen Finlay as part of that induction process.
Any other comments? Graham.
Just like to thank you for doing a great job, Ange. Probably won't catch up with you again, so all the very best.
Thanks, Graham. Really appreciate that. Thank you.
Just a quick comment. Thanks, Ange. The Pollard Road lights issue, I mentioned it, I think, at our service delivery last week, and I understand they're all installed. They just need to be lit. And have you had anything further from that? And because each time it appears in our service delivery agenda, I always raise it.
Yep. Thank you.
And is that where it's currently at?
Well, I just checked with Brian just earlier, end of last week, about the lights, because I thought, oh, maybe I've misread the work plan. And he said, no, that would be 16 lights. Well, I was on patrol, and unless I can't count to 16, there are not 16 lights. There's new lamps put in down there, but not the number of lights that were on the plan. And it's still is like the black hole of Calcutta down there. It's really dark.
So they've got lamps, but they're not lit, or are they just
no, the lamps are there. There's just not enough.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they probably need double. Yeah, more poles, definitely. Yeah, yeah. But maybe there was a reason for it. He did say something in regard to material delays and things like that. So whether they're planning to put more in, but at this point, I got told it was finished, and then when I went down there, I went, okay.
We'll keep on it then.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Just for information for Ange, when we went to the LEDs, we moved away from the fluorescents. The LEDs are very, very much like a spotlight. The fluorescents had a good spill, and I've got a little street behind me called Bar Street, and one light did the whole thing. They put a new LED there, and it goes. The rest of the street's in darkness, and it's something that I've asked them to research or see if they can make spill, but it doesn't seem to have happened. No.
Yeah. And just while you're packing up, I don't think there was any other comments, but just reiterating Graham's comments. Thank you very much for your last 3 years and all the best for the elections. So it's great to have you along. Thanks for the report. Thanks, Ange.
Your worship, do you have to actually move the acceptance of that report?
Yeah.
So I'll
We've
please
just
that way if I can, please.
Yeah. Move Councillor Lou and sorry, did you speak? Yeah, and Phil. Yeah. All those in favour? Aye. Contrary? Carried. And I think Sue's arrived. So going back to item 10, the Cambridge Community Board. Welcome, Sue. Having to stick to 80 kilometres an hour across the swamp slowed you down this morning. Thanks, Sue, and a very warm welcome. So would you like to give us your report? And just switch your mic on, Sue. That's it.
This past year, several of our board meetings have been by Zoom, which has been useful, but it's been good to now meet together around the table in the Cambridge meeting room. And thank you to the council staff who have facilitated these Zoom meetings. It's much appreciated. Highlights of our year include Christmas in Cambridge. Thank you again to Waipa Networks and Stina Morrow Limited, who decorate our Christmas tree in Victoria Square. We may not have been able to have a Christmas parade, but together with the Cambridge Chamber of Commerce and other community sponsors, Cambridge did have Christmas decorations and events. A Christmas-themed drive-in movie was held at the Cambridge Raceway. We had a competition for decorated letterboxes so Santa would be able to know where presents should be dropped off, and a Christmas float parade with a difference. These were floats in a shoebox and displayed in shop windows, so it was a parade of sorts. The clock tower was lit up in Christmas colours, and the community board had a decorate the town evening where tinsel and Christmas wreaths appeared in the CBD. We now have guidelines for the colour lighting of the town clock, and this year we've had the colours of the flag of Ukraine, blue and yellow, light up the tower and the town hall frontage. This symbol of solidarity with Ukraine was a request from the students of Cambridge High School, who also had a mufti day to support the people of Ukraine. And sponsorship for the lights for Ukraine came from Construction Advantage and Stina Morrow. We do appreciate that. Other key highlights from the community's board's year include growing a number of pop-up vegetable gardens on berms and parks. This is a great initiative for our neighbourhoods, and hopefully there will be more of these wonderful gardens, with special thanks not only to the board members who have helped put them together, but to the neighbours of these gardens who actually care for them. We have a representative on the Cambridge Social Services Committee who keeps us up to date with all that happens in that area. And this has been really important in terms of knowing how many of our community are faring in times that are not easy for everyone. Our connections also keep us up to date with the business community, as well as the important events going on in our town, such as the Autumn Festival. We have been running our Anzac and Armistice civic services, and we have, with special thanks due to Brigadier John Broadley and Colonel Tony Hill, who play a very big part in this. And also another highlight is maintaining and continuing communication with our sister cities, Pohoro and Lekanwa. And up there you can see a beautiful wooden bowl that has been given into the custody of the Cambridge Community Board until it can be taken to the New Zealand Museum that is to be completed hopefully next year in Lekanwa. It's kauri and punamu, and it's a very fitting gift to go to. There's also a note of
a photo there of Bastille Day, which we do like to observe in Cambridge. And this photo is of children who won the best dressed pet competition. As a French theme. It includes my grandson, who didn't have a toy, but a pet, but he did have a pet crocodile toy. So that's been a really important part of our communication with our sister cities of Lekanwa and also Mohoro. We appreciate having 2 council representatives on the board. It makes for excellent communication between us and the council. We were sorry to have the resignation of Councillor Owen Andre Wiltons from the council and the board. Owen has been a very hardworking member of the community board for a number of years and has been very involved in all that the board has done in the community. And we still have a tractor in the Leamington playground due to her efforts. Ngā mihi nui. Thank you too to Graham Webber, who does an excellent job of keeping us up to date on council affairs, as well as doing so much for our sister city links with Pohoro, Japan. And thank you too to all of our board members who actually do an awful lot in the community, which isn't always seen. The annual rural tour, a highlight of our year, over 2 Saturdays with the Mayor and Regional Council members, as well as our board members of our part of the Waipa District, is always a highlight. And this year we had excellent attendances at halls and very good discussions. Key themes from the tour were roading safety and networks, waste disposal and recycling for our rural residents. And I've just had a comment from one of our residents regarding some work that has been done in his area as a result of the rural tour meeting. So it's good that you can see that things are happening. And a special thank you to all the staff who help with our meetings and the requests we inevitably make. And a special thank you to Karen, our Secretary and Governance Officer. She does a very good job. So thank you to her. That's my report. Thank you.
Thanks, Sue. I'll open it up for any questions, any comments to Sue? No. Right. Hey, thanks, Sue, for the hard work for you and the board over the last 3 years. Certainly, the presentation has highlighted some of the events, and I know that you do a lot more than that, just obviously in the community and get a great deal of support.
Yeah.
So,
yeah,
thank you for that, and we look forward to the new triennium and the review and working forward on
thank you.
new functions for the board.
Yeah, they've been a great team. They really have. So it's been
Thanks,
super to work with them.
And Sue, from my point of view, you know, you're very, very visible in the community. You spend a lot of time in the community, a lot of contacts, and I think that's filters through into the board, and you're being out and about.
Yeah.
And I think the board members all get stuck in and do their bit to support you. So thank you so much.
Thank you too, Graham.
Thanks, Graham. So just a mover and second to receive the report, Roger and Susan. All those in favour? Aye. Contrary? Carried.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sue. Now, item 12, the temporary alcohol ban for Mighty River Domain. Gary, it's Chris, is it?
Thanks, Your Worship. Welcome, Chris. So this is just an amendment to the liquor ban dates for the Mighty River Domain, and it's been to the Finance and Corporate Committee. So staff available to answer any queries.
Thanks, Chris. Any comments? It's straightforward.
Happy to move that amendment.
Lou Brown moved and Graham second. All those in favour? Aye. Contrary? Carried. Thanks, Chris. Sorry? Oh, okay. As Carl's just arrived. Item 13. Thanks, Carl. Straight to Carl.
Thank you, Worship. Good morning, everyone. So that time again, annual report to the Alcohol Regulatory and Licensing Authority. So a lot of information in there. I'll take it as read. Again, it's being submitted via an online survey, which makes it a bit tricky to get into a report format and present it in a way that makes sense. Their questions, again, an opportunity to raise some of the things that have come up during the course of the year, and just reinforcing Council's endorsement of the private members bill that was dealt with earlier, and some of the other changes that we've proposed in previous reports. So there is quite a bit of replication from previous years, largely because the questions are the same, but also there are things that haven't really progressed or we haven't had any feedback on that we're reiterating. So yeah, happy to take that as read and take any questions.
Thanks, Carl. Are there any questions from the committee? As usual, this comment is the report seems to go into a really dark hole and we don't get any feedback on it. But yeah, a lot of work putting it together. But
Your Worship, just for information, it's quite astounded that the number of licensed premises in my part is something like 140. I wasn't counting too close, but it's quite a few.
Well, and that's some of the concern, isn't it? That the availability of alcohol. So any comments? Otherwise, can I have a mover and seconder to receive the report? Yeah, Andrew and Bill. All those in favour? Contrary? Oh, sorry, Marcus.
I just got with your questions, Bruce, about the communities perceiving the wide variety of alcohol outlets. It has actually been quite a lot of kickback now from the community, but reading the notices and becoming more aware of applications for on licenses and stuff. So it's been good that the community is getting more involved about, you know, where shops are going to open and giving feedback about.
Thanks, Marcus.
So Marcus, do the public have a chance to, when the license come in, they don't really see them, do they? Or how does that work?
Well, no, they don't. So I pass over to you, Carl.
If you like, through the chair. So yeah, we're trying to move away from the statutory requirements that it has to appear twice in a newspaper circulated in the area and have a notice displayed on the door. And we recognise that that's not really enough in modern times. So we're moving to try and make all of our applications more visible, whether that be listing them all on our website or through some other mechanism. So anyone who's got an interest can see them. We're still not going to cover everybody. People will have to be actually looking for them to know they're there, but hopefully it will increase the circulation and the discussion of those applications.
It is something that, yeah, it's people aren't aware unless they sort of, we do put them on the website, but it needs to be more actively promoted so that it reaches more targets. But the other problem we have is that if you are against an application for a bottle store in Cambridge, you're actually not an affected party. So your submission wouldn't be warranted, Bruce, because you don't live in, you're not directly affected. So that kind of thing is still a bit of a hurdle to the affected people for the application is quite specific.
Mike.
Yeah, just to comment on the stats are pretty stagnant over the last decade, except the on-licensed stats, which have gone up by probably over 35%, which I guess to me shows a sort of healthy local economy in terms of that hospitality, hospo area. So I think it's actually, in terms of where the growth is, it's positive because businesses are obviously viable. So it actually shows it shows a healthy economy. So
thanks, Mike. Right, sorry, I was getting a bit ahead of ourselves there. I got a mover and seconder before the discussion, but that's okay. A bit slow coming on board. So look, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Contrary? Carried. Thank you for that. Thanks, Carl. And item 14, Gary, the share transfer.
Thank you, Bishop. So Mr. Morris is here to talk to this matter. Effectively, Tupor are looking to step out of CoLab. They're effectively in the Western Bay arrangement, but they're actually sitting within 4 different regions. So critically, they're opting out instead of focusing on a number of local authority shared services enterprises and Western Bay have unfortunately decided that they'd like to join us. It's one of those cases of having extra shareholders to fund new initiatives is actually an advantage. So Ken, over to you to just talk about the process.
Yes, yeah, no, thank you. Thank you, Gary, and yeah, thank you, Your Worship. Look, not too much to add to what Gary has said. Yeah, effectively, it's a little bit coincidental that at the time Western Bay of Plenty expressed an interest in joining the collab arrangement. Yeah, Taupo decided that they would actually step out of it. Yeah, but look, what that has done is actually made this quite an easy transaction in terms of that that Taupo share going to Western Bay of Plenty. So yeah. So we just need to essentially sign this document alongside the other shareholding councils to allow that to happen. Essentially waiving our rights to as all the other councils will do as well. Waiving our rights to actually take ownership of the share itself. Happy to take any questions, Your Worship.
Thanks, Ken. Was there any questions? It seems straightforward and there's no financial implications for us at all. So it's quite a neat transaction for a change. Claire's moved and Marcus second. All those in favour? Contrary? Carried. Thank you for that. We've now reached the point in the agenda of take a break. We are running a little bit in front of time, but so I suggest that we come back by about 10:25, if that suits everybody. So we'll break for